Hi guys, welcome back to another uh, video for my journey to the Philippines. And as some of you know, I got my GED yesterday. Woohoo! And I wanted to tell you a love story today, and a little bit about the Bible. And the love story that I got for you is some of my own testimony. So back in 2015, I was sent to prison for third-degree assault on a police officer. So what happened was I drank 340s of King Cobra, and woo, I was having a great time. And then I got into an altercation with somebody, and in that altercation we left that place, and then the cops found us later down the road, and they started to take me to jail, and I didn't want to go to jail. So I don't really remember doing it, but I did the crime, I paid the time, and I would say that prison was one of the best things that happened to me, and I definitely wasn't falsely accused or put there. I put myself there. So, and so while I'm in prison, I get really beat down, and I'm still altered. Like, I'm still. They give you a lot of rules, and I really wasn't going to accept those rules. So they ended up putting me in the hole, and they put me in the hole for a whole entire year. And as I was in the hole, also they I rebelled against it while I was in the hole, or whatever you want to call it. And so I acted up in there. Then they put me in an intensive management unit, which was one step away from death row. And in there you have two doors, and there's no way to get to you, and you never see anybody. And so I used to use the Bible as a tool to put information in, and to save information, because they had to give you your religious material by your rights in jail and in prison as well. So I'm in prison at this time, and so I told him, I said, bring me my stuff. So he brings me the Bible, and I have it, and I said I didn't have anything in that room because you're in trouble. So it's a steel bed, and the night before, I was sitting on that bed, and I had felt bad for what I did, and I was crying, and I thought that was weird that I felt bad for what I did, but I shrugged it off, and I put the Bible on the floor, and I went about my day. But when I sat down on that steel bed, I said, a thought popped into my head: you've never read that Bible for yourself. So at that time, I thought the Christians lived in a fairy tale world where they just wanted to pretend to be nice, while the whole world is obviously in pain and suffering, and I didn't know why. So I thought Christians were clubs where people just go to act nice. And so little did I know, I was about to find out how wrong I was. And so I began to read. I read the gospel 3 times back to back, and I just love the Bible's honesty, and how Jesus died and he was backstabbed by Judas, and how all the apostles died and Jesus rose to life, and this is what happened to them as well, and just like the way it goes down, and how it really shows you like the world was the same way it is today, like if not worse in some scenarios in the Bible. And so when he said that, I no longer call you servants, but I call you my friend, I was just absolutely like, okay, a God that wants to be my friend, sure. Because at that time, from reading it, I was really obsessed with the parable of the sower, and I wanted to understand it. So I would read it in every gospel, and I would rewrite it, and I was interested in the Bible. So from then, I decided to I was in that cell alone, so I decided I was going to baptize myself. So I dunked my head into the sink, because that's, you don't want to dunk your head in the toilet. That's all, only 2 water sources you got, And so I dunked my head into the sink, because jail cells have a stainless steel toilets and a sink, and you got your bed in that room, and that's it. And the toilet and the sink, that's it. And so from there I started to think about what I did, and my actions, and the 10 Commandments, and I started to see stuff. I remember seeing this guy. He was in there. They have you all wearing all chains, and but especially when they move you, they put chains on your feet and your hands and all that, and on your waist. But he had other chains on him. He had chains that were spiritual chains. I knew that they weren't I can't really explain what they looked like. They were there, but they weren't there at the same time. I knew it wasn't from this world. And he had chains on him, and you could see the devil had a hold of him. And so from there, I made some friends. I got out of the hole. I made some friends, and these friends, since I'm in prison in Nebraska, and these friends, they invited me to. And it's a long story about how I got to Nebraska. But skip, and so I said I was going to go to Washington, and that was my plan because they had to give you $100 and you can go anywhere you want in the United States. And so I remember my buddy from the Sea of Cortez. He told me, and that's parable. He told me, he said, uh, "Are you gonna go to Washington and eat bugs and live on the streets?" And I was like, "Well," I laughed because I was like, "Kind of like that's like the best plan I got." I was gonna buy a tent, and so he invited me to stay with his family, and that turned out to be really, 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 really great. And so after that, I still had to, I read this Outlook magazine, and I seen in there that it talked about the school and the church that they had here, and so I said I'm gonna go there because I remember my grandma was an Adventist. She wanted me to go there, and even my first workout partner in prison, which he left before me, but I worked out with him all the time, and he was a 7-day Adventist. And because I remember I'd asked him, I said, "Man, I'm not getting any bigger." And he said, "Well, it's because you got to rest." And he said, "Sabbath though." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He's like, "Oh, it's the Sabbath," because he said it in Spanish, right? Because I hanged out with Mexicans while I was in prison because I'm half Mexican and German. I don't know if I mentioned that. And so the so I get out and I start following God and I go to church, and I've always been like try to been a loyal guy and like a good friend, so I didn't want to leave the church, and I said if I'm going to leave it, I'm going to leave it because there's something wrong with the doctor. And so far I've been here for years now, like 8 years, 7 years, and I keep looking at the doctrines and I keep questioning them, and not to say I haven't had struggles, but I just haven't found anything to to say that the Adventist Church's doctrine is wrong. So praise God, and I just keep growing. And now I just want to add a little bit to, I've done other mission work, and I've helped people, and I've had the job with my grandma, and I will give the thanks at the end to a lot of people to getting me to this point. But with the GD and all this, I just want to add a little bit of whoa, what the heck was that? I just want to add a little bit of I wanted to add a little bit of story to what was my why behind wanting to be a pastor, or even like now I'm thinking about not so much a university, maybe like a college and like a Bible worker working for the church in some capacity, and still in the Philippines, into like, so I kind of just bit off more than I can chew, and I just kind of imagined all this in my head. And one thing that started it all was I came here to visit my buddy and I hadn't seen him in a long time, so they didn't really know what was going on without him, either. So, well, when I came to visit him, he had the cutest baby ever, and this baby reminded me of Sydney, Australia, and that was a parable. And so, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to seem weird, but I didn't know, so, but in my mind, in my heart, like, it was like, I melted, dude. Like, it was like, I was like, wow, this is, like, I never wanted to be a dad before. I never wanted to, like, I just wanted the girl, but not like, the actual, like, the whole package. And so from then, the whole thing started for me to, like, want to do that. So I went back to California. I went home. I went back to my job, and on my free time, I do a lot of digital art and whatever, and I play around on the computer. And, I'm just sitting there thinking, and I was like, well, if I was going to have a baby, so now I'm obsessed. Like, I want a baby, right? So, like, I was like, if I'm going to have a baby, I'm like Hannah in the Bible, right? And so she's like, I want a baby. And so I was like, well, what do you got to do? And, like, to me, I don't know why I thought education. I'm not saying anybody's stuck at the paper ceiling or whatever. Jesus is the ceiling that never ends. So don't worry about it if you don't got it. And if you want to go get it, you could do it too, because I didn't think I could do it. And so I start to think about it. So I was like, well, you got to get like more of a career, like a job. And I was like, what do you always want to do? Well, I always wanted to be a pastor. And so I was like, well, where would you go? And I was like, well, I wouldn't go to school in America because it's $32,000 a year or $35,000 a year, and I've never seen that much money. So I was like, that's out of here. And I was like, well, if you study abroad, that'd be amazing because you'd be like, I don't know, maybe the first person in my family to study abroad. And and so I just was like, oh, okay, well, that's cheaper too. So not only is it a tropical, I'm from the West Coast, so I like nice weather. I was like, not only is it a nice tropical place, it's also cheaper. So, like, why would you say no to that? It's like saying no to a great deal. Like, I just came up with all this in my head, and I think it's a great idea, and God's helping me get there. And so, I would like to also say I work at a Mexican restaurant, and my job is to greet people and say welcome, and welcome to Taco John's. Would you like that to be a small, medium, or large? Would you like any nacho cheese sour cream with that? And I love that job. And it's, so I'm an ordinary guy doing extraordinary things by the grace of God and Jesus Christ. And, I just thank the whole entire church, of course, and my mom already knows how excited she is, and, I thank her as well. And all the people that helped me along the way, they know who they are, and there's so many names, and there's so many families, and people, and in and outside of the people that just lift up Christ, people that in small and big ways, the people at the mission, like high five, and anybody, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I know that sounds dumb, but I had to get 2 coaches in order for me not to quit, because I knew I would try to quit, and that's exactly what I did. So, go into a church and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you help me? I'm struggling. Like, and somebody can guide you. Somebody can, help you. And I think if you like your coaches too much, they're probably not good coaches for you, because I try to quit, and I try to tell my coaches, I said, look, is there any other way I could be a pastor? Like, I was like, I'll pick rocks out of the field. This whole time you're lying. You're just trying to get out of it, right? And they're like, nope, there's no other way. There's no other way. And they're like, that's too bad. I guess you're just gonna have to never, I guess you'll just never achieve that. And so, so there I am, like, super angry. I didn't want to say it, but so. And then I was like, well, then in my mind, I was like, well, if quitting is not an option, what are you going to do? Because, like, how are you going to say no? Like, what are you going to tell your future kids? Like, oh, I can't come here. Because, like, getting my GED was the key that I needed to open the door to, to go over there to the Philippines and go to school, because they won't accept you without your high school diploma to go to any college, and even the university. And so this was my key to do all that. So I just thought about telling my future kids, like, oh yeah, that's what happened. I didn't do it because, I didn't move forward in life. So that was a big motivator for me to want to have kids and want to have a wife. And, getting to know somebody is one of the coolest and most amazing things. So I know she's going to be a beautiful 7-day Adventist woman. And, just don't marry anybody outside of your church. And then when it comes to church, don't marry anybody outside of your doctrinal beliefs, because trying to get 2 people to work together and it's a lot. So I used to think it wasn't important, but now at this stage of my life, it's very important to me. And some people will see it as, oh, that's not loving, that's all these things they would say, but it's like we're controlling. But no, I mean, if you come to church and you know God, you would know why it's important to us. So I'm not trying to convert my wife or fix my wife, or in that sense, as a helper, as a person who's expected to cut the grass and take out the trash and clean the house and do all those wonderful things, and be a team, and go to work and do laundry, and get in arguments and not get in arguments, and lick lollipops, and go to what are those places? Oh, you guys like aquariums? So in Central California, they have Monterey Bay Aquarium, and it is awesome. And, like, you look at otters. So life is good, man. Life is good. And I choose to pick someone who's not a Philistine, and choose to pick someone that God is giving me. So that is a blessing, because only He got me this far with that. Because God knows I tried to be in plenty of relationships, and And you know, it's awesome. So just keep following God, listening to Him, and my Bible verse is Luke chapter 12, verse 32. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And that's right. It's going to be more awesome than we can possibly imagine. We can fly and make cotton candy, poof out of thin air. Who knows what we can do up there? But let's get excited about Jesus coming back, guys. Amen.